Over 2 decades of sports radio dominance in Utah.
My favorite.
This is DJ and PK on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
DJ and PK, it's 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. AJ Dybantsa went on social media yesterday and said, big news tomorrow, 11:45 a.m. ET. IG Live at 12 p.m. ET. That's it. That's all he'd say. 11:45 Eastern, 9:45. He's doing something for our show. Of course, he's got something at 10 a.m. The 10 a.m. show seems to get all the news, all the info. What could it be? What could it be, PK? So intriguing, such a tease. Bernie says 1 more year of college hoops. He's headed to the U.
That'd be awesome.
Thanks for the comedy, Bernie. We appreciate it.
That'd be a great story for us to talk about.
Lori said, good news, he's lowered his cholesterol.
Yeah, man. That's something I gotta work on.
Just had a friend telling me about that yesterday. Cholesterol at the forefront.
What happens if it's high?
You can end up with arteries getting narrow and restricted and, set yourself up for a stroke or a heart attack. I think that's what they worry about. They can test that now. They can tell you this artery is 70% open or, whatever the number is. But you would rather golf than go to the doctor and get a bunch of tests to find out about your arteries. So just, get your cholesterol down so you don't have to worry about it.
Well, I had a physical and they said it's high. That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
I mean, I have a closed mind and closed arteries.
Yeah, I know. Case says no announcement needed if he's leaving. So he's staying. Or he's going to play for Pope at Kentucky. Laughing, crying emojis.
Pope at Kentucky, huh? So this John Goodman at Goodman Hoops, I don't know who he is. Is he serious? Ace Dybantsa told the Field of 68 there will be breaking news tomorrow at noon at the Davis School in Brockton, and that is in Massachusetts. Hearing UMass Boston could be the destination for next season. It's got to be a joke, right?
I would think so.
Jeff Goodman at Goodman Hoops. He has like 340,000 followers. He's a basketball analyst, covers hoops at all levels, co-founder of Field of 68. That'd suck for him if they change the expand the tournament, right? Can't be the co-founder of Field of 68 if it's more than that.
I think he's been around a long time. He's got a familiar face, but I don't know what he's done. I haven't searched. I've seen some of his posting. He was doing like podcasts after tournament games and that kind of stuff. He has a couple of guys working with him. I've seen the stuff.
Yeah.
That would be stunning news if he did that.
Well, he didn't put his name in the transfer portal that we saw, right?
Right. Greg says if you look at the real analytics of everything, he would make more by staying at BYU and being a 4-year college player before jumping to the NBA. Obviously, that comes with a risk in the event he became injured. Supermax contract in the NBA would pay him regardless.
How does that work that he would – why would someone think he would make more in college?
I don't know because I don't think he would, and I don't think it would be close. You got NBA players. The goal now is to get to the NBA. For most guys, the goal now is to get to the NBA quickly, get through that rookie contract, and then start making the real money in your second and third deals.
Well, it would be for every guy. Why wouldn't it be for most guys?
Well, I think for some people it's just not realistic. They're trying to,
But that doesn't mean it's not their goal.
Sure. Yeah, you could argue that.
I still think I could play third base for the Dodgers if I could just get a shot.
You do not. And I think there's a lot of NBA guys who know, if I could just get in a rotation, that'd be great. But for Dybantsa, I mean, these guys are making, over the last decade, the max salaries have doubled. $30 million used to be the top, and now it's going to be, I think Steph Curry's going to break $60 million next year. And then Shea Gilgeous-Alexander is projected, and somebody else too, is projected to be I think it's Tatum in Boston. They're going to have $70 million by the end of the decade. They're going to be making $70 million. Number keeps climbing. Why would you stay in college? Get into the pros, start your rookie contract, get through it, and then you can make the really big money.
I mean, what is really big money, though? $8 million isn't really big money?
It would be to all of us.
I mean, I that always baffled me, the really big money. It's all big money. It's all life-changing money. If you want to say bigger money, but the really big money? I mean, what is then? And then compared to whom? Like, these ex-players and all, like LeBron is still obviously a player, but, wanting to buy a team, well, they don't have near enough money to buy a team. So that to them, what is really big money?
You can find lists online of how much money these guys have made over their career. And obviously they paid a lot of taxes, and then they've invested and made whatever off of however they've invested their money. But just in terms of raw NBA salaries, there are guys over $500 million. But in an era when the Jazz just sold for, like $1.6 billion when Ryan bought them, and already the valuation is shot up. And the Padres just sold for $3.9 billion. And it's great that you made $500 million, but you're still a long way away. If you can find one for sale, it's not like these teams are coming up for sale all the time.
Right, but I don't know that these players have burning desires to own NBA or professional franchises anyway. That just seems for the isolated few.
Yeah.
Who have the publicity and the PR machine and the hype going around them at such a high level. So that who are those people? Jordan and LeBron, Magic, who else? I mean, they may be minority investors in some soccer team in some country.
Yeah, but even that, you hear like Tom Brady's buying 1% of whatever team. It's a place to park their wealth. And it's going to...
Yeah, right, but it's Tom Brady. That's my point. It's Tom Brady, it's Jordan, it's Magic, right. It's LeBron.
But
it's
Brady
not Sam
and Magic,
Darnold.
Yeah, Magic and Brady, as big as they are, have been buying small minority shares. Jordan did buy the whole thing and try to... There's the one guy who really went out and did it.
And it didn't work.
Well. Yeah. Didn't work. Yeah.
So I don't think that's what they're thinking. I in my mind, is Dybantsa thinking, man, I got to get to the NBA so I can get the really big money? I don't know that that's what the young man is thinking.
Well, we'll find out at 9:45.
But
see if he announces he's going pro, or see if he's announcing something else.
But that doesn't necessarily mean he's going to announce he's going to go pro. But that doesn't mean that I got to go now so I can get the really big money. This is the system that we have here. And so you got to abide by the system's rules, essentially, and this is what you do. I mean, what good is more college going to do for him? Oh, he can get more seasoning. And
get more seasoning in the NBA.
Right, I know. So my point is, I don't think I got to get going so I can make the really big money. I'm not really sure that is the mindset of these youngsters. It's I got to get going because I'm a professional basketball player, and this is what I do. I really think that if you just look at it that way, that the money will be there. And even if the money, the really big money isn't there, more money than you ever dreamed of is there. So you're already okay. I know personally someone who was a journeyman in the NBA and has been able to live off that the whole time. Never really made the big money, but that's all relative. He made plenty of big money compared to everybody else, and he played 4 years. He could have come out early, but he wasn't really that much of a prospect. Although he was a first-round draft choice. He was, indeed, a first-round draft choice. So I think their mindset is I have to test myself as soon as I can at the highest level. And the system demands it. It's like the system basically demands for quarterbacks in high school that you leave the best time of your high school career, of high school life, not career, and go join some college team in January.
You don't get to coast through the spring semester and just prom and senior night and
your last run with your buddies.
Class.
I mean, you can still do prom. I mean, Zach Wilson was famous for doing that. But I'm just talking about the day-to-day laziness, and your life is about to change. Everything that you've had and the stability that you've had is going to be over in a matter of weeks or a couple of months. And that's sort of a freaky time I can recall 1 o'clock in the afternoon on a Tuesday, people tubed the Salt River in the east of the Phoenix area, and that was basically a weekend thing. Well, in April, obviously the weather is good enough down there to be able to do it. And I can remember doing it with my buddies, or May. The season was over. Baseball season was over, so we probably got bounced in the playoffs, and I hit a solid 220, and knowing that my baseball days were over, so you sort of melancholy. So you go with a bunch of buddies, and none of us were good enough to go on. And so we tubed the Salt River in the middle of the day on a Tuesday, and there's nobody there. And it was glorious, right? And you can't do that. The system, in a large part, especially if you're a quarterback, demands you go to that school because you got to get there, right? I mean, Isaac Wilson, not to pick on him, but didn't he do it? Where did that get you? You know? And now you're trying to win a backup job in Colorado. We demand these kids trade in their youth for bigger, and they all do it.
Accelerate.
Yeah.
Do it. Sooner, faster, achieve.
Right.
So if anyone's going to do something different, will it be Dybantsa? Because he already did something different going to BYU. And he didn't mind talking about it. He sat on the set with Stephen A. Smith and said, why don't you go to Duke? And, this is Stephen A.'s point. I mean, I think Stephen A.'s kind of moved on. He's probably talking about the playoffs and the Knicks now. But it'd be like, well, Duke went to the Final Four and BYU went out in the first round. I mean, why didn't he go to Duke? It's like, I get the line of questioning. But AJ wanted to do something different, so he did something different. I wonder if he'll want to do something different today. And, I did talk to a few people about this, and there's actually a few comments about this. Some people are wondering if he's using this. He's commercial endorsement guy. Is he doing this announcement and some company he's working with, and so there's some commercial side to this of whatever he's doing today?
You talked to a few people
who don't know anything, just guessing. It didn't even occur to me. I thought he was going to declare pros, but fans are savvy. They see a lot of this stuff, and they're like, maybe he's doing something with one of the BYU people and promoting something for him. And he's got some deal he'll be working on when he's in the pros. He's still going to stay connected. I'm like, I guess that.
Well, he's doing it in Massachusetts, not Provo.
Yeah, I don't think they knew that when they said that. But it could be whatever company,
Well, sure, there's going to be something tied to it. You're not simply going to have an announcement that says, I'm going to go pro.
Right.
When you're the projected number one pick.
Have a shoe or a sports drink or some other product on the table as you announce you're going pro.
Yeah, something along those lines. I mean, yeah, for sure. Especially since it doesn't really cost you anything to do it. Why not make easy money? Nothing better than making easy money, is there?
Sing it. There's got to be a song.
Well, there should be.
Feels like you're halfway to a couple different songs. You gotta mesh them together somehow.
Yeah.
Do a mashup.
I have no problem with that. I mean, take advantage of what you can. The system will take advantage of you unless you take advantage of it. Right?
That's true.
Yeah.
The machine's going to keep grinding. So do you want to get something out of it, or you just want to watch the machine do its thing? Because the machine will keep doing its thing.
Yes. I read a story here a while back. You remember a guy named Junior Bridgman?
Sure.
And the business mogul that he became. Now, he wasn't a big-time player like a Magic.
No, but he was really good, or I wouldn't remember his name.
Right. He played in the NBA and a number of years. He's 71 years old. And he played for, I think, like 12 years. But all the stuff, I just called it up. Following his career, Bridgman owned hundreds of fast food restaurants, became a Coca-Cola bottler, and acquired Ebony and Jet magazines. Despite having never made more than $350,000 in his season, Bridgman's net worth is over $1.4 billion with a B. Way to go, Junior Bridgman.
Junior.
Yes. I would love to be Junior Bridgman III.
Slide into that cash.
This is awesome, man. He never made more than $350, which is outrageous money.
Which is a big number.
But, NBA-wise, and he took advantage of the system and now has a net worth of over $1 billion. This guy should be teaching courses everywhere. And the NBA should be holding him up. He should be doing seminars as much as possible if I were the NBA. This is who you want to be. Junior Bridgman. Sure, we all want to be MJ. Great. But it's so rare that you're an NBA player and then trying to be MJ? That's next to impossible. But Junior Bridgman, if you make the NBA and you're basically, what would you say? You know, he was the 8th pick, but I don't remember him being a big-time player. But he played a number of years and took that and go. And if Dybantsa can do that, great. Good on him, man. That's just awesome. That's what it's about. Use the system. Don't have it use you, because it'll eat you up and spit you out and go on to the next guy if you're not savvy. And we've heard about, I read something the other day about Antoine Walker lost most of his money as an NBA player. Doesn't that seem outrageous?
Yeah, it does. It's sad to hear that. It doesn't happen as much as it used to, but it still does happen.
Yeah.
I think that Junior Bridgman, for people, I think he was Jeff Hornacek-ish. You know, he played more than a decade in the NBA. He scored. I don't think he ever scored 20 points a game, and he played with bigger names and Marcus Johnson and Sidney Moncrief. And Jeff had more team success. I don't think Bridgman ever went that deep in the playoffs because he was with the Bucks and the Clippers.
83-84, he played 16 games.
At the end of his career.
I don't know.
Late in his career,
I just know it was 83-84.
Yeah. I looked up his career stats. 11,000 points. You know, he's over 10, but 20 is a number where you're like, wow, 20,000 points.
Oh, that's why I must have read about him, because he died a year ago.
Oh, there it is.
At age 7. I didn't realize he was deceased. He died in March of 25 at 71 years of age. That's probably where I read about him. Because I remember reading him and thinking, wow, this guy just blows me away of all the stuff he did. What a business mind he must have had, and how he got a jump start with a little bit of money. And if Dybantsa, if he's out there today and there's 2 or 3 advertisements there with him, great. Do it. Because if you don't do it, somebody else will, and take advantage of it. Because if you ended up like, let's say, a Greg Oden, and you're a high pick but had a couple injuries and couldn't get yourself healthy, they'll just cast you off like you're yesterday's news, right? We understand that.
That is the way it works.
Yeah.
Well, in an hour and 20 minutes, we will find out. We're going to take a break right now. Hour and 20 minutes, AJ Dybantsa will unleash whatever big news he has. Maybe multiple things. Maybe one thing. Maybe it's just straightforward. He's going to the NBA. We'll all find out together in an hour and 20 minutes. DJ and PK coming up next, the NHL playoffs. Joining us from the Daily Faceoff, Matt Larkin. Game 3 looms tomorrow night. We'll talk with him about that next. Stay with us.
I'm here on the job site with Dale, who's a framing contractor.
Hey, good morning.
Dale traded up to Geico Commercial Auto Insurance for all his business vehicles. We're here where he needs us most.
Yep, they sure are.
We make it easy for him to save on all his insurance needs, all in one place, with coverage that fits his business and bottom line. Oh, I shouldn't have looked down.
It's all right.
We're so far up here.
Look at me. Take a deep breath.
No, I'm good. So good.
Get a commercial auto insurance quote today at geico.com and see how much you could save. It feels good to Geico.
Make game day yours. Tickets, food and drinks, stats, and streaming. Everything you need is in the Utah Mammoth app. Download today and make game night easy. Download on both Android and iPhone. Just top. Nobody brings you better coverage of the teams you're passionate about than these guys.
Try some more.
This is DJ and PK on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
DJ and PK, it's 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. We are joined now by Matt Larkin. He's a managing editor and senior writer for the Daily Faceoff, covering the NHL. Matt, good morning.
Good morning. It must be an exciting one in your neck of the woods. Big game coming on Friday.
I would think the last 6 minutes of the second game, wound people up who were already pretty wound up. So now it's 1-1. What did you learn from 2 games? What do you know about this series that you didn't know when it started?
I mean, so far I've seen a lot of what I expected to see. I had that series really close. I had it going 7 games. I think Utah and Vegas are very similar teams in terms of what they do well. They're both great at driving the play. They're both great defensively. I have Utah winning this series in 7 games, and now you have the split. You've got home ice advantage because of that split. So it's sort of it makes me sound cocky, but it's kind of playing out exactly as I expected so far.
Good. We like to hear that, and then we're glad we have you on. With that in mind, that would obviously mean that Vegas would win in Salt Lake, and then Salt Lake or the Mammoth would have to go back to Vegas and win. And you see that, or I guess my question would be, why do you see that as doable?
I think, to me, when 2 teams are just so evenly matched, the goaltending is the tiebreaker. And yes, I know Carter Hart was really hot down the stretch for Vegas, but Karel Vejmelka, to me, has been so consistent all year long. He led the Western Conference in wins. He's handled really high volume, and I think I trust him more right now over the course of a long series. And Carter Hart, he's been on fire, but he hasn't played a lot of hockey, of course, in the last few years. So I think Vejmelka is more built to last over the course of a series.
Obviously, the Mammoth had a few young guys who are just, Gunther and Cooley especially, who are just really arriving as they move to town from Phoenix. And Cooley seems to be backing it up he did have the injury as a bit of a setback this year, but he seems to be backing it up. And I have to say, there's almost some kind of stamp of approval in my mind that the league's giving him when a veteran player looks at him and says, I'm going to bleep and kill you at the end of the game. Like, what did he do that deserves the death penalty? It struck me as veteran guy realizes this guy's a handful, and let's see if we can intimidate him. And obviously the answer to that is no. He scored the game-winning goal in Game 2, but do you see that as kind of the league giving Cooley the stamp of approval? He's arrived.
I think so. I think it kind of backfired on Dowd in the sense of it's a sign that Cooley's getting under his skin and that he's effective, he's dangerous, and I think it kind of is a microcosm of how the season's gone. And Logan Cooley, of course, he did miss time, but I think especially as a goal scorer, he really surprised this year. We knew he was dynamic as a playmaker, but adding the goal scoring to his repertoire, I think now we know his ceiling is just as high as everyone hoped it would be when he was taken in the top 3 at the first round of the draft. And of course, Dylan Guenther, to me, has been really effective in this series. He made a big play on to help to set up the winning goal and scored 40 goals this season. He's dynamic, he's big, he's fast. And of course, Clayton Keller, Nick Schmaltz, the guys on that line have had great years. They've been so reliable over the past several seasons. But I think the difference this year is the step forward that Cooley and Guenther have taken.
We saw in Game 1, and I'm reading Vegas papers, I know some of the guys down there, they're talking about it, that it was clear that the Golden Knights came out and were trying to send a message with the physicality and all this, that we're going to basically rough you young guys up and whatnot. What do you think of that strategy in terms of being correct or maybe backfiring and firing up and getting the attention a little quicker than might be expected of the younger Mammoth?
I think it makes sense that Vegas is going to try to do that because they're a veteran team. They have multiple players who have won the Stanley Cup in 2023. They're going to try to assert their dominance, maybe intimidate a lineup that has a lot of guys who've never played a playoff game before. But I think what they take for granted in that case is that Utah has plenty of players who are able to mix it up, whether it's Mackenzie Weegar, even Ian Cole's really experienced. He won Stanley Cups with the Pittsburgh Penguins. Lawson Krause is a big, strong guy. So is Jack McBain. And then, of course, Mikhail Sergachev can handle big minutes. He's a big guy. He's won Stanley Cups. Brandon Tanev's a really physical forward. So I think that Bill Armstrong has done a really good job building a team that isn't just skilled, but also capable of winning in multiple ways. And that includes if you want to have a really physical hockey game.
It also seems to me like a younger team with no playoff experience gets it as the series goes along, and you can get tougher and realize, hey, the checking's a big part of this. We got to be physical in the playoffs in a way that maybe the regular season doesn't demand it. But on the other hand, it looks like the quicker, the faster, more athletic team is a Mammoth, and I don't know how Vegas is supposed to get faster, more athletic. And I get why, they're lining guys, putting 3 guys on the blue line there because they can't give the Mammoth space. It seems like when the Mammoth get space and they start skating, they're just blowing by Vegas guys. Is that something we're going to see more of as the series goes along?
I think so, and I think it is one of the reasons why I picked Utah to win the series. I think, Vegas is still a good offensive team, and they were much better once John Tortorella took over in terms of the underlying play-driving numbers. They actually were tops in the league. But Utah, the fact you can spread your lines, you can have Keller and Schmaltz on one line, you can have Gunther and Cooley on another, and even the third line, you can have J.C. Peterka, who's dangerous as well. I just think there are so many dynamic groups that bring a lot of speed and skill, and it could be overwhelming for Vegas. It's still going to be close because Vegas does have excellent defensive forwards in terms of just the matchups, whether it's Mark Stone, Mitch Marner. Those are two of the best defensive forwards of this entire generation. So, I don't think it's going to be dominant one way or another. Sense the way things have played out so far because Utah does have a lot of skill, a lot of speed, and they can overwhelm opponents.
Since you're picking the Mammoth to win in advance, who did you pick that they would be playing?
So if we look at that side of the bracket, that specific part of the bracket, which means that Utah will be playing the winner of Edmonton and Anaheim. And as I filled out my bracket, I think Utah beats either of those teams if it advances to round 2. So I actually have Utah going to the conference final in the West this year.
Oh, that's good for sports radio. Thank you.
We'll take it.
All right.
Now, when you throw that out there, do you hear any reaction from some of the people you work with, people who read you? What is the feedback? You're crazy. That's a bold pick. I see where you're going with that. These are all coin tosses. That pick is as good as any other one. What was the reaction?
I think it depends on who you talk to. So if you're more of a modern thinker and you like to study the analytics a little bit more, I think a lot of people in that camp have really liked Utah this season and labeled them as one of the sleepers to make a deep run. On the other side, if you're more interested in the intangibles and just the idea that the style of hockey is different in the playoffs and a lot of players are going to struggle to gain the new experience, then maybe I'm overreaching, expecting a relatively green team to go that far. So I think it depends on the camps that you're involved in, and I could see it both ways for sure.
A lot of our listeners are new to this, right? And everybody loves a story. And so the Jazz are down their rebuild here that they've been going through. Looks like it's over, but nevertheless, they haven't had postseason in a number of years. And so the fresh story is the Mammoth, and they've been able to capture the attention. And now with their playoff, that we have some form of playoffs. It's in terms of in the spring, it's hockey now. And so there might be learning as we go. And we know in the NBA, they put a big premium on the home court, and Utah was tough to play. What level of emphasis or premium do you put on home ice advantage?
I think it depends on sports. So it's undoubtedly most prominent in basketball, and that's just something we all know historically, that it's most skewed in terms of home records being dominant. It still is an advantage in hockey for sure, and I think it's more pronounced in the playoffs when the games get more aggressive and physical and players feel that adrenaline. I think you really saw it. So I was in Buffalo for games 1 and 2. The Sabres make that comeback. You could feel them feeding off the momentum of the crowd as they fought back over that wild final 8 minutes in game 1. They were clearly being fed by the energy of the crowd. So I think it is an advantage, and I expect it's going to be significant for Utah. And I'm going to date myself here, but I still have memories of 97-98 NBA Finals watching Phil Jackson put the earplugs in, playing the Jazz, right, at Delta Center. That was a really rabid, loud building. I know those same fans technically have aged 30 years, almost 30 years since then, but I suspect they've passed down the same habits to their kids, and I'm expecting a really loud, raucous building for Game 1 and 2. Or Game 3 and 4, I should say.
Right, I got you.
One key to the series so far, and it's been a real problem for the Mammoth, is they're 0 for 5 on the power play. At the same time, Vegas is 2 for 5. Vegas with the empty netter and the 2 power plays, you can say a lot is resting on this. Do you think those numbers hold, or do they have to even out a little bit just by the nature of the sport? And if they do even out, is that a major problem for Vegas?
I do think it'll be a problem for Vegas, but I do think they also match what we saw in the regular season, right? Vegas had the number 6 power play in the NHL, 24.6%. Utah was down at 18th, 20%. So that was, on paper, one of the advantages that Vegas held over Utah going into the series. It's not necessarily going to be that skewed all series long, but I think it makes sense that so far we're seeing Vegas more effective on the power play. It's something that Utah, despite all their talent, they haven't quite figured that out yet. It's something they're going to have to work on, I think, over the next couple of years.
Since you've already said you've got the Mammoth winning a couple of series, How much of that is that you have a belief in the team, the organization, versus maybe it's just a bracket situation that they can take advantage of?
I think it's both. I think that Utah is a well-constructed team, and I think the proof of that is just the fact that I have them beating Vegas, because Vegas is a good team too. But I think also the other part of the bracket, Edmonton and Anaheim, are more flawed. So if Utah does get by Vegas, I actually think it's going to be an easier series in round two. So it's kind of, I don't know if it's a cop-out answer, but I truly believe both. And then if you look more in the long term, I just think Utah is a franchise set up very well to contend for years to come, because you have more prospects on the way that are very high-end prospects, whether it's TJ Ginla, Caleb Denoyer. And not only does that mean there's help coming, it means that there's more flexibility to trade some prospects too if you have an extreme surplus. So I think this is just the beginning for what's going to be a long era of Utah being a contender.
That sounds very good in the long run. I think in the short run, people hearing this are like, oh, I get why they can beat Vegas and I get why they can beat Anaheim, but they had real problems with Edmonton. You think those could be overcome if it comes to that? I mean, there's no guarantee either team will be there, let alone both of them. But let's just, for sake of argument, say it's both there. They really struggled with Edmonton in the regular season.
They did, but if I remember correctly, they struggled with a healthier version of Edmonton. So right now we have Leon Draisaitl. He's back, but he's still not 100%. And then you have Connor McDavid, who tweaked his ankle last night. We think it's his ankle. He was not himself for the rest of that game, and we don't know whether that's going to hurt him for the rest of the playoffs, whether he's going to be able to shake it off. And that's scary for a team that's already notoriously top-heavy. They need both those players to be dominant. And I also think, just with all due respect to Connor Ingram, if you put those two teams up against each other, if it was a hypothetical series of Utah and Edmonton, again, the advantage in net goes to Utah with Vejmelka. So I think this is, compared to the Oilers teams that made the Stanley Cup final the last couple of seasons, this version of the Oilers is much more flawed.
Matt, we appreciate the time. Thanks for coming on and talking a little playoff hockey with us.
Pleasure, guys, and I will be watching intently on Friday. It should be electric.
He's Matt Larkin. He's a managing editor and senior writer for the Daily Faceoff. And he got to be in that building in Buffalo for that great comeback. That had to be electric. We like stories. We like those moments, PK, and that was something. So
a lot of electricity then.
Good for him, right? All right, DJ and PK, we got to take a break. We will have more in the 9 o'clock hour. Cole Bagley, who covers the Mammoth for KSL, is going to join us coming up at 9:30. DJ and PK, it's 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
This is Utah's best coverage of the Utes, Cougars, Jazz, and Mammoth. Here we go. From the guys who have been there for all the biggest moments in Utah sports history. You're listening to DJ and PK on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
DJ and PK, reminder to join Scotty and the coach from 10 to 2 at Tim Dahle Nissan Southtown this Friday. 11155 South Jordan Gateway in South Jordan. Tim Dahle, home of the Forever Warranty. PK, the draft is tonight. There is hockey tomorrow night. What is the big story? The messy story's in the rearview mirror. It was fun. The place was packed, but Miami's better. There's a level, I think this applies to the Jazz as well, and Pablo Mastroeni has said this a couple times. He went half a day way down this road in the postgame. It's great to be good, but there's a whole nother thing you have to do to be great. And I think we're seeing that in the NBA playoffs right now. There are teams that are good, and they're going to win a playoff series or two, but it's a pretty short list of teams that can be great and can win it all. And greatness, does rest on health, and Victor Wembanyama, man, it looks like San Antonio's one of those teams that could be great, and he goes face first into the floor, and now everybody holds their breath. When can he be back? So there's a little bit of good fortune mixed into it, but you can improve, and the Jazz have been bad. We expect them to be good next year, but it's a whole nother gear to get from good to great.
I don't think that's ever not been the case in the NBA, or to say it better, it's always been the case, or most always, which is sort of a contradiction there.
Okay, give me most always. That's the one that intrigues me most.
Well, it can happen.
You get between dynasties?
But that is the rarity, yes, the nature of this sport, and what we might very well see with the Mammoth is an opportunity to be really good in the manner that we saw with the Jazz. I mean, what did they make the playoffs? 18, 19 years in a row or something along those lines, right?
Yeah.
And so that sucks for them. I guess you can say that they didn't win it all, but the fact that they were there year after year after year, as the time has gone on, my respect for that has grown immensely. And I think that's partly not anything that they did or didn't do that I recognize later. I think it's more about the league with the load management and all that stuff that has made me appreciate that run, that era, that tenure, which was just awesome that they were there, led by the statues, led by including Mark Eaton and Thurl and some other guys there across the time, that they brought it every single night virtually. And now we're already talking about, how many games is Markkanen going to play next year? Well, we never would have said, well, how many games are the Statues going to play next year? They're going to play 82. It's going to be the rarity. We expect them to play 82. If they didn't, that was the surprise. And even when Stockton went down, he came back, if I remember, quicker than we thought. And it was just a big breaking news story that he's ready to go. We had, at least if I'm remembering correctly, we anticipated maybe a little longer, but he got back literally as soon as he could. And so as time's gone on, I've respected that greatly. But the NBA has consistently been about a handful of teams maybe that could win it all. So that's the reality of that league because of the 2 or 3 players that can be so dominant. And so we've had a number of what we would call dynasties, right? Maybe not in the form of the Celtics when it was a smaller league, but we've seen the Lakers, the Bulls, Pistons had a little bit of a run back there. And you can sneak in. I also think that before you're great, you need to be good. It's very rare that you're going to go from not the worst to first thing that we talk about. Those are more divisionals in the NFL where there's only 4 teams in a division, so it's easier to do that, and you get an injury or two, and it can decimate a team. And you can look at the Chiefs this year, how much of their slide was attributed to injury as opposed to, well, maybe they're aging out a little bit, and that happens, and it will happen, and they'll have to reload at some point, obviously, and maybe they're in the process of doing that. But from the Jazz perspective, the opportunity for them to be good next season, if you go big picture, could be good enough. Now, I got to see what that good looks like. Clearly, they're going to be better. We would all be shocked beyond belief if they weren't better, right? So we're going to put that on the shelf. That's a given. Now, what level of good can they be? Because you get to the first round and get smoked in 4 games. All right, that's an advancement from what they've been, but that may not be good enough. Whereas if they play, say they got in a 4-5 series next year and lost in 7 games, that's a big difference in getting smoked as an 8 seed. You see what I'm saying there? So what 100%. Level of good will they be? That's the intriguing prospect. And for the hockey team, we just had a national guy, Matt Larkin, come on. He's got him going to the conference final this year, and then he starts naming 2 or 3 of the prospects that we have heard of, and we anticipate them coming. That's sort of new. We haven't had that at the professional level, at the highest level here, because it's draft guys, trade for guys, sign guys, right? Not follow them through a minor league progression. RSL's had it to a degree. I understand that. But this one here, these high draft choices, and as they come aboard, that's going to be fun. Are we sitting on a Jazz-like run with the Mammoth?
No.
No?
I would always bet against.
Maybe not to that
runs.
degree. You don't. But if they go 8 to 10 years,
that would still be impressive.
Yeah,
this would be a good run. The 20-year run, just the further you get away from it, the more amazed you are. And since then, it's basically a coin flip on them going to the playoffs. They've gone 11 times. They've missed 12 times, which really does. And now it seems like they always need 3 or 4 years for a rebuild. And they had a run where they went 4 in a row and 5 out of 6. And then they had a 4-year rebuild, and they went 6 years in a row. But then they tore that down, and now we've had a 4-year rebuild. And how long will this launch them for? The goal was to not just open the championship window, but keep it open.
Who said that?
Jay-Z.
Well,
right.
if they tear this thing down in 4 years,
we're all going to be disappointed.
that's going to suck. It's going to wait a second. I didn't go through this to only have 4 years unless they won 3 titles.
Yeah, right. Yeah, if the peak were that good, then you would take it. I think that's why this draft lottery is so intriguing. Because if you get the top pick and you get AJ Dybantsa, well, then you can project, and who the heck knows, but you could project, well, Ace Bailey and AJ Dybantsa, they could build around these guys for a decade
There's no
plus,
question.
right? And then the guys who are older, hey, you win with them now, but at some point you move on from them, you use the cap space, or you flip them, whether it's Jackson or whether it's Markkanen or whether it's somebody else. And you can look at that in the same way the Jazz had Stockton Malone.
Yeah, it's easier to build around those two.
3 distinct groups.
And that's great because they fit the timeline because they were drafted in consecutive years and they didn't have the Carl was kind of a blowhard, but John was, I'll resign. I can remember going to a press conference when she resigned. And they asked him, well, they offered me the money. The money was good. This is not exactly the soup kitchen. He used that very phrase, the soup kitchen. And it was sort of a low-maintenance dude. Yeah, I'm going to sign here and I'm going to play here. It's as simple as that. Next question. And that was cool. And maybe we can have that here. Who knows? These kids have so many people in their ears, and maybe that's something, you wonder with Mitchell, what was his big deal? Why did he want out? What was so bad about it? To where I realized the times and the nature of what was going on in the world as a young black man who grew up in extreme privilege, trying to find himself in that way, and how much did that factor into it? And if it had been another time where there was more harmony, maybe that doesn't happen. I would really like to know what was the deal, and if I were the Jazz, what really was the issue or issues, because then I would go about trying to correct those to make sure that that's not repeated for this younger. Even if they don't get Dybantsa, they get the 2nd or 3rd pick, sign me up. You're still going to get most likely a young African-American kid, and what can we do to make so you enjoy it here? Because we invest so much, and they care about that stuff. We used to hear about so much about Robin Hayward, right? And how happy she was, and she was so young at the time, and we had management tell us about her, and so that stuff matters. And so what rather than look at it, oh, Mitchell, he's this, he's that. No, what were the issues there, and what can we as an organization and a leadership committee group do to make it better for future guys when they come here? That's the way I would look at it, rather than just make it some big thing that, oh, screw him, blah, 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 blah. Nah, I'm not really into that. What can I do, or what can we do to make sure that doesn't happen again?
And that's certainly part of it, and that's the part that got the most discussion. But watching Danny Ainge's career, I just can't help but the part of it was he looked at it and thought, it's a good team, but the flaws are going to keep it from being a great team. The 2 guys you're paying, one guy's undersized, and look at who Danny Ainge has built teams around. If at all possible, he is built around much bigger people. Now, they did ride, you could go to a conference final riding Isaiah Thomas, and he was a smaller guy, but they weren't going to win the title with him, and Ainge didn't resign him, and obviously there's an injury factored in there. But you look at the guys with Tatum and Randy, go back to Paul Pierce and Kevin Garnett. I mean, he's built around bigger guys.
Right, but they traded those guys on their terms. They didn't really have the opportunity to completely trade Donovan Mitchell on their terms.
There were other things going on.
His terms.
But I wonder if deep down Danny Ainge just flat out wanted to trade him because he thought, let's get the most we can now. He doesn't really seem that interested in playing defense. He is undersized. His value is as high as it's ever going to be. Let's do it. Now, there were other things going on. It wasn't completely his terms, but I just wonder down deep, if you're right, if it had been a time of more harmony and maybe he's a little older and a little more mature, because that's the other thing with the Hayward thing. I mean, we're talking about really young people, and maybe they would look at it differently 3, 4, 5 years later. Mm-hmm. That's an age, we can remember being that age. That's an age where you change pretty quick. So who's to say? So there was some of that stuff going on, but does Ainge doesn't really build teams around a dominant defensive guy who has very little offer at the offensive end, and then you pay him top dollar, and an undersized guy who can score at an amazing rate but doesn't offer much at the defensive end of the floor. I think we're going to see them trying to build around a different type of player. I don't know that Danny Ainge ever fully bought in. They were good. There's no question they were good. But I think he doubted their ability to be great. And for multiple reasons, it was time to move on. So he did it.
I'd still rather move on completely with me in the driver's seat, not because I have to.
Yeah.
I have a timeline that I have to move him or else I get nothing for him. The league knew that.
Yep, that was absolutely a factor there. The clock was at 3 years and moving. And, Cleveland just bet that, well, we'll catch a break, and he probably doesn't want to be here. He'd much rather be in New York. But they did catch a break. New York had a pretty good team, and they were capped out, and he couldn't get
Yeah,
the
but now
big
I
money
read
offer.
that multiple places that they're going to trade him if he doesn't sign the extension. So here we are again.
Yep, yeah. Yeah, well, look at some of these guys like Durant and Harden, as good as they are, man. They're on their fifth team, and maybe Donovan Mitchell's going to be doing the same thing, It's just Magic and Bird playing for one team and Jordan playing for two, and we barely even count.
They're all-timers. Mitchell is very, very good, but he's not an all-timer at that level.
DJ and PK, it's 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. More in a moment. And we've got the NFL Draft coming up tonight. We got Cole Bagley coming up to talk playoff hockey at 9:30. Stay with us.